Moin! Welcome back to our design introduction series. Today we start talking about general design documentation, so we quickly go through, this will take a while, when we go through an entire example of how a documentation could look like. This is basically the entire overview of, hey, this is the structure you should likely shoot for. There is not really like a real rule set for how this works. This is the structure that I have seen frequently in studios, and they roughly recreated something for this. Each of these pages will have like a little description where we talk about what this is and what should be on it. And well, yeah, we will do this for the next few videos. Let's start with the starting page. So I tend to like to encapsulate my documentation in like a separate page. This is usually useful because this allows you to like export certain things, like these parts that are not actually part of the documentation, from your actual documentation. Which means that you can have them in like separate places. Just essentially like a way to have like a separation between what's all your documentation content and a few additional information. Then we start our documentation with a title page. This is just a quick summary of your game. The name of the game is the main part of that. And then a few visuals that quickly represent showcase the representation of your game. So whatever like Steam capsules, banners, titles, and so on you have for the game. Then our table of content is a list that contains all of the pages that you want to have in your documentation. The way you create something like this in Confluence, what this should work for regardless of what wiki site you have in some way, is by simply adding a table of content via this adding page, I guess. And so it's just table of content. You add in there different versions, play around with what you like best. But essentially, it just generates an entire list of things that are inside of your documentation. And this brings us to the creative overview. Creative overview is like the first larger section. This is where you want to have all of the main elements that describe what your project is. So essentially, like a header page that contains all of the high-level project information. What is your project about? Why would it work from a development perspective? Why would it work from a business perspective? Shorthand information to quickly tell someone what a project is and in a way that can be understood. Usually you have like a few different versions of this. We will talk about this when we get to loglines, but you usually want to have like a few different explanations for what your project is, depending on who you talk with. So if you talk with business people, you want to have a different explanation than with other game developers. You usually want to have a different explanation with press and marketing teams than you have with your core development. And sometimes even with design, art, and code, depending on how large the team is. Gets us to our core pillar page. So core pillars are essentially just like a rough description of elements that you want to have for your project. They generate a focus point of things that you want to work out for this project. Like usually it's quite well to make like some form of emotion your pillar, or some form of mechanic that you want to push for. Usually these are one of the first things that you determine once you have like decided on the overarching type of project that you want to make, and they lay the fundamentals of what your game actually is. Every game has has a different set of pillars, but sometimes you have an overlap if you want to make something that's similar to another product. And like you can also have a different numbers. Like in my experience, 4 is kind of where you want to be, but usually somewhere between 3 and 8. And they create like fundamental concepts of what your game wants to be. Just here an example for an open world game. So explorations, players are encouraged to explore and being able to go in any area they wish and whenever they wish. This is basically just like now a rule that you have created for your product where you talk about how like your game focuses on this type of exploration, and this is how you specify that. Mechanics and features that you now add to your game should usually push this pillar forward. Obviously, you have multiple pillars, so mechanics should push one of them at least. But better mechanics, like some of mechanics, will push multiple pillars to a good degree, and usually these will be better mechanics for your game at this point. Movement. Moving through this world is made into a fantastic experience through diversity and fun movement in the world. This like as I said, like they're really high level, just defining like, hey, maybe we have some abilities for movement, maybe the environment itself is fun to travel through. But at this point, we have to explain that the way the player moves is something that's relevant for our game. Like scavenging, like the way of like something that collects items, food, and whatever. Like the player finds stuff on the way. Now something that we have pushed for our game. And then options, having multiple ways to solve different things, is now a part of what we make for our game. More information on pillars can be found on link. I will, as always, put it in the description. Then we have our narrative summary. This is just a high-level overview of what our story will be, and essentially just describes like major story events. See if we can get this build to load, or we get back to our like intensity versus time structure. What are our main elements of the game? So we have like, what is our prologue structure? What are the acts that we have, if we have acts? What is the climax? What are our high and low moments? All of these things. But with all of these like creative overview elements, describe them as quickly as possible. Like people should not read like 3 pages on what your high level story is. Roughly outline, like try to put this together in like 5 sentences or something. Just like these are the highs and lows. Visual art style describes the visual art style. Usually you will have several mood boards and mockups and like other example shots in this page. Usually there's not really that much text here other than like sometimes some fundamental goals you want to shoot for, but this is mainly in, hey, this is roughly what we want to look like and here are the examples. Project summary, the quick summary of the project. So what is this project about? Should not be more than half a A4 page. Just, again, keep this short, just a short description for, hey, this is the project we want to make. And usually we also include our loglines here. Sometimes this is a separate page, but for this case, I put it in the same location. And logline is a 1-sentence description of the project. And ideally, we have a few different ones. This is what we've talked about before for different occasions. So if we want to talk to team members, we can use this logline to quickly explain what the project is. Usually done during onboarding. If we talk to developers outside the team, we have this explanation, something that you can quickly show people without them knowing more about the game. If we talk to business people, we talk it more in the sense of, hey, if you compare it to these and these things, you might know. And if we talk to people outside of the industry, we will have something that's like on a lower level. Maybe sometimes there's a way to describe this project in relation to just general things people know about. Like, this works like a puzzle-style board game, or like this style of interaction that you have in your everyday life. Like, just like really bare bones, really abstract for, hey, this is what you could imagine if you think about our project. Unique selling points. This goes into what elements make your product special in compared to your competition, and what do you have that encourages an audience that already exists and something that you can target to want to obtain your project over another product. This can include points that are just generally unique to your product, but it could also be elements that are in your product and unique in combination with your product. So maybe you have a farming game that now also has space travel. I'm sure this exists, but like we can have like, hey, we have this type of game, but we also included this other thing that people already know, but it's special because usually other games don't include it if they are like our game. And generally, this is just a list of things that potential customers would want, and things that a company and the product would do well, minus whatever the competitor products do well. So find the things that your company can actually succeed in. Then think about which of them would be good for customers, or like would be liked by customers, and then compare them to competitor products and see if they are already in there or not. Core loop and main interaction loop. Yeah. Just the main activities that divide the project, so the main elements that you will like experience when you play the game. So like we have our explore situation. While we explore, we find upgrades. Upgrades allow us to unlock new areas, which allow us to explore the game further. And then we can go a little bit in depth to have like this a few meta systems here as well. Which means like we have our main interaction loops, of basically like the same that we have up here. But we have also like goals that players could have, like something like defeat all enemies, unlock every item, reach max level. Just like things that a player could shoot for in your game, like stuff that could keep people engaged while they play the game. And then main interaction, sometimes you can like even break this up even further. So if you want to talk about like one fundamental or two fundamental main mechanics that your game really comes with, like something that maybe defines one of your USPs, unique selling points, then you can go like and create specific loops for these interactions as well to explain these a little bit more in depth. Our expected target audience is just a list of group of people that we would expect to like or purchase our product. This is usually created by an investigation who's playing competitor products or which hobbies, interests align with your project. So you essentially go through, hey, all of these people might like our game. And this goes into, hey, people that like this game might like our game because it's similar. Or people that have this hobby might like this game as well because it has an overlap. So like for hobbies could be, hey, people that really like cooking might like our game just about putting recipes together. And on like a game example, like we could say like, because we create this cooking game and it's similar to this other cooking game, maybe we could also appeal to this audience. Then target hardware. It's basically just what min requirements do we recommend for our customers. Usually max requirements are recommended requirements are quite open-ended, but we should fairly early decide on what are the min requirements. And we should also start talking about what type of consoles we want to push it in. So what generation of consoles will we support? Or do we even support any consoles, or do we not support some? We should put like a rough estimation here on Project Start. This is usually not more than, hey, current gen consoles plus minimum spec of development PCs on Project Start. But for like you will likely, so assuming that your project will take longer than just a year, you will likely need to update this at some point. At some point, we will also create a benchmark for our game, which is just like a one-level test shot that showcases every feature, or like at least like every relevant parts of features and how they work together. And this usually is used to showcase how well the game runs on on a specific platform. And once we have this, we link this here because this kind of confirms what we can actually do. And then research and research topics and references. It's just a list of short descriptions for research topics which are relevant for the team members. It's usually just like a list of things that people can look into if they want to know more or if they want to broaden their horizon about the project that you want to do. So usually it's competitor projects, but also some like specific feature definitions for things that you want to use in your project. Usually you find loads of these directly in the departments, or later on we will talk about like the different department spaces, because each department should have like roughly have like an own space where they talk about roughly the contents of things that they want to have within their departments. Like those are just like all the information tech shares with each other, all the information design shares with each other, but it's not relevant for the rest of the project. But these research elements are usually something that's like in there as well, and makes sense to outline at least the things that seem globally relevant for the teams on this page as well. Leads of the department should usually periodically just go through their spaces and update this site to make sure that everything is included. And this brings us to the end of our first session. When we talk about design, we completed the overview for the creative. We created like the description for the creative overview. This is usually the first section that you build in your documentation, and with the next session, we will move on into the more like production relevant topics. And with this, I wish you a great week, and we see each other in the next week.